I told you a little bit about what Vorobeichic, or Moi Ver, was like as an artist, but I have not yet told you about his roots, his family, and what had a huge bearing on his life, on what he did and how he did it. Moshe Vorobeichic was born in a village in today's Belarus in 1904, which was in Russia at the time, but the great revolutions were soon to come, and as a result, Vorobeicic's family moved to Vilnius. He was 11 when his family moved to Vilnius, and we should note that it was a Jewish family who spoke Yiddish. It was the language they used at home, but the family was quite modern. They lived in an elegant tenement house, and the family was quite well off. The father owned a lumber mill and educated all of his children extensively. Here, in one of the cabinets, we can see, among others, a beautiful document, a certificate written in Hebrew and Polish, which Vorobeichic received upon finishing the Vilnius Gymnasium. It was the first Jewish gymnasium which taught in Hebrew, the language that is today spoken in Israel, so we are talking about a language that at the time had recently begun to be reconstructed. Vorobeichic was sent to his Hebrew gymnasium where he learned many languages. We can see that he was a good student, but that was at the time a very modern school. In this room, we can see not only those private documents, but above all, the photographic work which Vorobeichic did about Vilnius. When studying at Bauhaus, he had an idea to do a photography project about the Vilnius Jewish district. The Jewish district was a very particular place. Vilnius was often dubbed the Lithuanian Jerusalem, Jerusalem of the North, or Jerusalem of the East. It was undoubtedly an extremely important city for Judaism, an important place for the religious thought, for Jewish philosophy, a place with a magnificent library containing major works, the Strashun Library, which we can also see in Vorobeicic's photos. The Jewish district was very small, only a couple of streets in the very heart of the old Vilnius. A very poor district, which nevertheless drew the focus of quite traditional Jewish religious and philosophical life. It is said that there were over 200 houses of worship and synagogues. Indeed, everyday life focused on religious life. Vorobeichic was not part of that community. He lived far from the district, but he knew that it showed in a very interesting way an important part of the Vilnius Jewish culture and decided to photograph it. How did he go about it? He started carrying around a Leica, his everyday use miniature camera. This means that it uses a 35mm film and it is quite easy to operate. So he started to run around the district with the camera and take photos. Some of them were quite traditional because we should remember that chronologically, photos from Vilnius are earlier than the Paris ones. He photographs various alleys and corners of the Jewish district, but he also takes shots of people and their living conditions. He photographs characteristic faces, work-worn hands, and threadbare clothes, and this makes for an extraordinary reportage. There are around 200 photographs. It is a unique reportage that shows on the one hand the cultural and intellectual richness of the district, and on the other hand, terrible poverty and very harsh conditions. When he takes these photos, he immediately prepares an exhibition which is shown in Vilnius, and then, I do not know how, but he has some connections in Zionist circles, so he takes these photographs to be shown at an international Zionist Congress which was held in 1929 in Zurich. He takes the exhibition there, and he is noticed by a Swiss publisher who likes the photos a lot and invites him to a serial publication made in Switzerland. He proposes to publish a small photo book about the Jewish district in Vilnius. It took quite some time for this book to be published. It comes out in the same year as Paris, in 1931. However, it comes out in an astonishing number of 12,500 copies in 4 language versions: German, English, Yiddish, and Hebrew. Here we can see the original book with reproductions on the walls, and we can observe how Vorobeichic used photography in this publication. We can see that almost every centerfold is yet another story, not only about the Jewish district, but also depicting certain dynamics of that place. We can see very interesting juxtapositions, photo clusters, and a lot of photo montages. I encourage you to analyze it carefully, as the book has a very interesting design. He shows his Vilnius exhibition in Warsaw, and then many years later, it will be shown in Israel at the Jerusalem Museum, among others. At the time when he's taking these photographs, he also manages to publish them in several magazines. Among them, you can see it in the cabinet, an interesting publication in a Romanian illustrated magazine, so we can see how wide the reach of that project was. There is no comparable material about the Jewish district in Vilnius. There are no photos that would show this part of the city in such an interesting, dynamic, and socially sensitive manner.